Well, hello and welcome. My name is Misheard with Misheard Song Lyrics Podcast. We're in season 3, episode 144. First ever, if you can believe that, Billy Joel Misheard Song Lyric. So it's regarding his song from 1989 called We Didn't Start the Fire. And the Misheard Song lyric is, "We didn't start the fire. It was always burning," said the worst attorney. And then the correct lyrics is, "We didn't start the fire. It was always burning since the world's been turning." You know, when the worst attorney says we didn't start the fire, could you believe him or her? That's a funny one. So let's talk about the song, the impetus of the song, as well as the, great video that came with it and what's it all about. So We Didn't Start the Fire, like I said, is a song written and performed by American musician Billy Joel. It was released as a single back in September 27th, 1989, and later released as part of Joel's album called Stormfront on October 17th, 1989. So who is Billy Joel? Well, he was born William Martin Joel back on May 9th, 1949, so he's a Taurus. All right. He is an American singer, pianist, composer, and songwriter, known as the Piano Man, and that's how, I've known his moniker after his single and signature song of the same name. So if you haven't heard it in any karaoke bar, it's one that people love to sing a lot when they can. And then the thing about him is he had a successful career as a solo artist since the 1970s. He had released 12 pop and rock studio albums from 1971 to 1993, as well as one studio album of classical compositions in 2001. Lots of accolades. So he is one of the best-selling music artists of all time, as well as the 7th best-selling recording artist and the 4th best-selling solo artist in the United States, with over, get this, 160 million records sold worldwide. His 1985 compilation album called Greatest Hits Volume 1 and 2 is one of the best-selling albums in the United States. Did not know that. Did know that he was born in the Bronx. He grew up on Long Island, where both places influenced his music. Growing up, he reluctantly actually took piano lessons due to his mother insisting on it, which I didn't know that. I just assumed, he, from day one, he, was born to play it, wanted to play it, but thank goodness his mom was insistent on him doing it. I wish my mom was more with me. I know how to play piano just to be dangerous. All right, enough about me. So with Billy Joel, after dropping out of high school to pursue a music career, he took part in 2 short-lived bands. I didn't know that. One called The Hassles and the other called Attila, before signing a record deal with Family Productions and kicking off a solo career in 1971 with his first release called Cold Spring Harbor. And then in 1972, he caught the attention of Columbia Records after a live radio performance of the song Captain Jack became popular in Philly, prompting him to sign a new record deal with Columbia and release his second album, you guessed it, Piano Man, in 1973. After releasing the albums called Street Life Serenade and Turnstiles in 1974 and 76, Billy Joel released his critically and commercially breakthrough album called The Stranger in 1977. This album became Columbia's best-selling release, selling over 10 million copies and spawning such hits as Just the Way You Are, Don't Go Changing, Try to Please Me, I Love You Just the Way You Are, love it, Moving Out, also called in parentheses Anthony's song, Only the Good Die Young, and She's Always a Woman, another song of the album. Also, Scenes from an Italian Restaurant is Joel's favorite of his own songs and has become a staple of his live shows. I've never seen him live, but that is one in my bucket list someday if he goes to tour again, because I know he doesn't like to tour anymore for his pop hits. His next album, 52nd Street, was released in 1978 and became his first album to peak at number 1 at the Billboard 200 chart. He then released his 1987 studio album called Glass Houses in an attempt to further establish himself as what they say a rock artist. This release featured It's Still Rock and Roll to Me, Joel's first single to the top Billboard Hot 100 chart, and then You May Be Right, Don't Ask Me Why, and Sometimes a Fantasy. His next album, called The Nylon Curtain, was released in 1982 and came from a desire for Joel to create more of what he said, or they say, lyrically and melodically ambitious music. And then An Innocent Man was released in 1983, served as an homage to genres of music which Joel had grown up in the 50s. So it does have that 50s sound with that rhythm and blues and doo-wop. First with Uptown Girl, that song, and For the Longest Time, two of his best known songs. And then after releasing the albums The Bridge and Stormfront in 1986 and 1989, he released his 12th studio album called River of Dreams in 1993. He went on to release Fantasies and Delusions in 2001, which featured classical compositions composed by Joel and performed by a British-Korean pianist by the name of Richard Yoon-ki-jo. Hopefully I said that right, Richard. Sorry if I didn't. He, being Joel, provided some voiceover work in 1988 for Disney's animated film Oliver and Company, did not know that, in which he played the character Dodger with his song Why Should I Worry, and then also helped with or contributed to other soundtracks. Here's some to name a few, so this is new to me. He did some soundtrack songs for Easy Money, Ruthless People, and Honeymoon in Vegas. There you go. So after the 20 years of his solo career, he produced about 33 top 40 hits in the US, amazing, all of which he wrote himself, and 3 of which, It's Still Rock and Roll to Me, Tell Her About It, and We Didn't Start the Fire, the one I'm talking about today, peaked at the top of the Billboard Billboard Hot 100 charts. Billy Joel also was nominated for 23 Grammy Awards, winning 5 of them, including Album of the Year for 52nd Street. He was also, no surprise, inducted to the Songwriters Hall of Fame back in 1992. And then, wow, that's about 30 years ago, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1999, and the Long Island Music Hall of Fame in 2006. Back in 2001, he received the Johnny Mercer Award for the Songwriters Hall of Fame. And then in 2013, Billy Joel received the Kennedy Center honors for influencing American culture through the arts. And through his whole solo career, he had obviously, would not surprise, a successful touring career. Here's amazing, with people that I know that have gone to his live concerts. He was holding live performances across the globe. And in 1987, he became one of the first artists to hold a rock tour in the Soviet Union following the country's alleviation of the ban of rock music. And despite, pretty much like I said, retiring from writing and releasing pop music following the release of his album River of Dreams, he still continues to tour, and he frequently performs at Madison Square Garden, so probably close to home. All right, so why was this song actually made? And again, the misheard song lyric, because we thought it was something about a, what was it? Said the worst attorney, but it's actually the world's been turning. All right, so what happened was he actually wrote it because of someone that came in, but we'll go there in a second. So just back to this misheard song lyric. It's what they call a list song, which he lists a lot of names and cultural references throughout the years. It's fast-paced lyrics, and apparently someone counted it. There's about 118 references to significant political, cultural, scientific, and sporting events from 1949, the year of Joel's birth. Oh, that's cool. And through 1989, and they say mainly chronologic order. This song itself, We Didn't Start the Fire, was nominated for the Grammy Award for Record of the Year and became Joel's 3rd single to reach #1 on the US Billboard Hot 100 in late 1989. The album itself it was part of, Stormfront, became Joel's 3rd album to reach #1 in the United States. Also, We Didn't Start the Fire, they say particularly in the 21st century, have become the basis of many pop culture parodies. We'll go into that in a bit. And continues to be used, repurposed, reused in various television shows, advertisements, and some comedic productions. So, okay, I'm getting to it. Now, here it is. What's the backstory of Joel creating this song? All right. So he created it is when he just turned 40. He was in a recording studio and met then a 21-year-old friend of Sean Lennon. Yes, that Sean Lennon, son of John Lennon and Yoko Ono, who said, quote unquote, "It's a terrible time to be 21. Joel replied to him, "Yeah, I remember when I was 21. I thought it was an awful time. We had Vietnam and, drug problems and civil rights problems, and everything seemed to be awful. The friend replied, yeah, but it's different for you. You were a kid in the 50s, and everybody knows that nothing happened in the 50s. Joel retorted, "Well, wait a minute. Didn't you hear of the Korean War and the Suez Canal crisis?" Joel later said those headlines formed the basic framework for the song. Joel also has criticized the song on strictly musical grounds. In 1993, when discussing with the documentary filmmaker David Horn, Mr. Billy Joel compared its melodic content unfavorably to the song The Longest Time. Take a song like We Didn't Start the Fire. It's really not much of a song, he says. If you take the melody by itself, terrible, like a dentist drill. Interesting. Even though it's terrible, it did quite well for him. So have you seen the music video? I had to watch it again on YouTube because I remember it. I just remember him and fire behind him. But I had to watch it again. I didn't realize all that stuff happening in between with him and the fire behind him. So it actually begins with a newly married couple, which the house almost looks like, or the actual woman of the married couple looks like a twin of Lucille Ball from I Love Lucy's character Lucy. They're entering their 1940s style kitchen, and it shows them in their domestic life over the next 4 decades. She has babies, the babies grow up and all that, including the addition of, like I said, children, their growth, later grandchildren, and the eventual death of the family's father. The passage of time is also depicted by periodic redecoration and upgrades of the kitchen, while unchanging, they say Billy Joel looks on in the background with fire behind him. There, see, there's the fire. Okay, so remember I talked earlier about parodies and some references in pulp culture. There were many parodies done and spin-offs of the song, and especially parodies and spin-off that took the original song. Remember, it was done in 1989, so they've added like additional events past 1989. One example is the Simpsons parody. They called it They'll Never Stop the Simpsons at the end of a 2002 Gump Roast episode. Check it out on YouTube or anywhere on the interweb that you like to look up. And then in 2019, talk show host Jimmy Fallon, formerly of Saturday Night Live fame, performed a version of the song for The Tonight Show, which highlights characters and moments in the Marvel Cinematic Universe since Iron Man, leading to Avengers Endgame, with backup by cast members Robert Downey Jr., Chris Hemsworth, Chris Evans, Jeremy Renner, Don Cheadle, Mark Ruffalo, Paul Rudd, Denai Guerrera, Karen Gillian, and Brie Larson. Very, very clever. And then in 2021, this is cool. I'm going to check this podcast out. A weekly podcast began, hosted by Katie Puckrick and Tom Fordyce, entitled We Didn't Start the Fire. What it is each week they examine a subject mentioned in this Billy Joel song. So there's a lot of them, right? I said earlier, there's a lot of references in lyric order, and discuss its importance and cultural significance with an expert guest. That's a great idea for a podcast. And then the last but not least, the song was also featured in a Amazon Prime series called The Boys, because the actor or character Huey Campbell, played by Jack Quaid, has a preoccupation with the American singer. So lots of references, pulp culture. Now we know who started it, why he did the song, because Sean Lennon and friend was there. Great example of a misheard song lyric with a great background. If you have any great suggestions like this, please send to us in any of our sites, email us, and we'd love to hear from you. Till then, keep saying those songs wrong. Bye!